What is going on, guys? Baseball Banter is back. Yes, we missed last week. Mike and I were both very busy last week. I had softball, and I was in Ohio on Saturday, so I couldn't get it done then. And then throughout the week, I was playing catch-up. I'm trying to get any kind of sleep. So Mike and I both sincerely apologize for missing last week's episode. So as always, we're back. And as always, I'm joined by my brother from another, the kid with the golden locks, Mikey Hewitt. What's going on, Mikey boy? Thanks for coming back.
No problem, John. I'm doing all right. I'm pumped up for our Red Sox Tiger series, second edition this year. Hopefully it goes a little bit better this time.
What happened last time?
Bring out the broomsticks. Yikes. That's when the Tigers were actually playing good baseball. I think they had won 11 in a row on the road, and then that doesn't happen anymore.
They can't win 11 and fuck you. Anyways, this past week, let's jump right on into it. This past week, baseball lost a really good guy. I don't know if you ever watched the edition on MLB Network. They actually did a documentary about Don Zimmer called My 6 Decades of Baseball. And this guy, man, was a walking, baseball history museum. This guy could say he saw all 3 Yankees perfect games because he was in the dugout during Don Larsen's perfect game in the World Series. He was there for both David Cohn and David Wells World Series as a bench coach for the Yankees. He met Babe Ruth. He played with Jackie Robinson. He broke the color barrier. He was the bench coach for he's the third base coach for the Red Sox when Carlton Fisk hit that home run in Game 6 of the '75 World Series. He was the coach of the Red Sox when Bucky Dent hit that home run for that monstrous comeback that the Yankees overcame that season. I think that was like 77 or 78. This guy was a walking history museum. He was one of the nicest guys too. So, baseball lost a really, really good guy, and I always liked Don Zimmer a lot. He was with the Rays as a special assistant to the GM for the last 11 years after being with Joe Torre and company for a long time during their dynasty years. So, great guy. You have anything you want to add about Don Zimmer, Mike? Any kind of memories? Anything you remember about him?
Well, the one memory I have, obviously, is him storming out toward Pedro Martinez and Pedro throwing him on the ground. But yeah, you covered all the bases here. I mean, the dude, I heard Bob Costas say that every cash that he checked in his life was baseball related. He never had another job. And that's got to be a pretty awesome life. And I know some people were sad to see Don Zimmer die, but he was 83 years old, and he lived a tremendous life, I would imagine, to be involved with not only baseball as a job, but he was with the Red Sox, the Yankees. He saw historic things. He played with historic people. I mean, oh my goodness. He had a terrific life, and yeah, it's sad that it's over, but it should be celebrated.
You know what's cool about Don Zimmer is it's kind of sad that he never really had a chance to become the player that he potentially could. He was kind of blocked by Pee Wee Reese, but Don Zimmer actually got hit in the face twice by a baseball, and it derailed his career, which kept him from ever reaching really what he could have been. Because he was actually a pretty good player. They used to call his nickname was Popeye. Because I don't know if you ever saw any old pictures of Don Zimmer, but that dude was built. He had some guns, man. And it's kind of sad that he never got to really play out his career. But like you and I touched on, I mean, the guy was a museum, man. I mean, all the stuff we saw, all the people he got to play with, all the things he got to witness in person. I mean, and he's one of the nicest guys ever. I mean, Foley, I forget his first name, the third base coach of the Rays. I think his name was Ted or Nick. He was in tears when they learned that Don Zimmer died because he had that effect. I mean, you could go talk to all these professional players over the last 6 decades, and Don Zimmer had some kind of effect on a good chunk of them. That's what kind of man he was. So Don Zimmer died on I think it was Thursday. So at 83, he was battling cancer, I think too. So rest in peace, Don Zimmer. He was a great dude, that's for sure. So we're going to jump on to a team that Don Zimmer was affiliated with as a player. What team do you think is more in trouble, Mike, with the Tigers' recent struggles and the Dodgers looking like the Dodgers of last year to this point? It's actually eerily similar how the records right now at this time this year as it was this time last year when Puig Mania started. What team do you think is more in trouble? The Tigers, who got out to a great start and now have slipped away, or the Dodgers?
I'm going to go with the Dodgers simply for the reason being that they play in a better division. I mean, the San Francisco Giants have come out of nowhere this year. I think they're like 20 games or 19 games over 500 at this point. And the bottom line is, with the new wild card format that's been in place for the last few years, you want to avoid that if you can. And as far as I can tell, I don't see any team in the AL Central overtaking the Tigers, regardless of how crappy they've been playing. I don't like the Royals. I don't like Cleveland, Minnesota, or Chicago. I like the Giants a lot more than any of those teams. And right now, San Francisco's got the lead in the NL West. I still think the Dodgers are capable of overtaking them, but I don't see anybody overtaking the Tigers. So with that being the case, I'm more concerned for LA than I am for Detroit.
At one time, the Tigers were 27-12 in the first 40 games, 41 games. They lost only 12 games in that time span. They've lost, I think, 12 in their last 18. I mean, they've been absolutely terrible in all facets of the game. You know, I made a video earlier today talking about it. They can't hit right now. Their offense is bad. You know, three-quarters of their lineup is in a slump. Their bullpen is looked like their bullpen like it has earlier this year. It's just been awful. They're having closing problems again. You know, their defense has been terrible. Torrey Hunter's really showing his age. Austin Jackson's having his worst offensive seasons ever. You know, left field's been kind of a merry-go-round a little bit this year, even though Rajai Davis has done pretty good. You know, shortstop has looked awful. You know, you guys got Stephen Drew. You didn't even need him because as soon as you get Stephen Drew, Bogarts decides to hit like a beast. So now you got an extra player you don't even need. That he would look great in the Tigers uniform right now.
Real quick. Red Sox record with Stephen Drew, 0-3. Just letting you know.
Really?
Yep.
Well, you can have Andrew Romine. I'll take Stephen Drew. Just saying. He's terrible. And then, you know, Nick Castellanos, he's been better as of late, but then Kinsler's gone cold, and really it's been Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez putting the team on their backs. And, you know, when they do score runs, Max Scherzer's getting lit up, and Justin Verlander is walking forward and giving up 5 and 6 innings. You know, and then Anibal Sanchez has a good start, and Joe Nathan absolutely is abysmal and terrible. But with that said, you can call me a homer, you can call me whatever you want. You can't go against the Dodgers being in more trouble simply for the fact that last year when the Dodgers were in this place, almost identical record, they were only chasing the Arizona Diamondbacks, who were only like 8-9 games over 500 at the time. They never really hit that streak to where they got 16, 17, 18 games over 500, like the Giants are right now. This Giants team they're chasing is the best team in baseball as it sits. Them and the A's, I think, are the best two teams in baseball. You know, the Giants, their pitching's outstanding. You know, their offense is the best it's looked in since I can remember. You know, what's his face? Michael Morris has done absolutely great work. You know, they're going to get back Brandon Belt here, I think, in the next couple weeks or so, maybe a month or so. You know, Brandon Crawford, I really like him. You know, he plays an absolutely great defensive shortstop. You know, Pablo Sandoval heated up a little bit over the last month or so. I mean, Hunter Pence, he's a great hitter. I mean, Angel Pagan's done good work this year. So, I mean, they're chasing a team that is a very, very complete team, and it's not the inept offense Giants we saw the last couple of years where they relied heavily on the bullpen and pitching. I mean, they're scoring some runs, they're hitting some homers. You know, they're pitching very well. And the Dodgers, who Don Mattingly even admitted that they're having some chemistry issues as a team. You know, they're not really gelling. You know, it's been pretty much the Yasiel Puig show. You know, Don Mattingly's had a bit of a hard time finding playing time for all his guys in the outfield. Matt Kemp hasn't been happy. You know, Andre Ethier hasn't been great. It's been pretty much, you know, Yasiel Puig doing those whole thing, carrying that team. You know, Adrian Gonzalez, he slowed up a little bit from his current pace that he was on earlier this year. You know, and Hanram, you know, he's a real streaky kind of hitter. He's not looking like the Hanley Ramirez that he did last year when he was, you know, absolutely outstanding. So you got to go with the Dodgers on this one, simply for the fact that the Tigers' division is terrible. You know, I think there's only one other team over 500 besides the Tigers, or at 500 besides the Tigers in that division. You know, even during this skid, you know, they've only lost, I think, 3.5 games in the standings over their second place counterpart. So it's not like they got anyone like the Giants chasing them in the background, you know, surging team. So if I'm a Dodgers fan, I'm scared because, you know, you spent all this money on this team this past offseason to where you would avoid having to have, you know, a 42-8 run to get back over 500, you know, or to get into first place and then absolutely dominate the rest of the way through. And they're pretty much in that same position again where they have to have one of the greatest 50-game, 60-game runs ever again to get, you know, to overcome the Giants. So Dodgers for sure all day, every day. So we're going to move on here. The Houston Astros selected Brady Aiken with their first overall pick this year. It was, I think, the second or third year in a row that they've had the first overall pick in the draft. So now, Mike, question for you is, I think this is their third straight year having the first overall selection. Do you think in the next 3 years that the Astros are going to be in the top 10 in the draft? Meaning, do you think with all these picks they've had in the last couple of years and the emergence of some of these younger stars such as Singleton and Springer and Cozart, do you think that you're finally going to start seeing this Astros team that's been projected with all the minor league talent is going to be starting to be good and show its true colors of all these players they drafted?
I would like to hope so. So are you asking me, do I think that they'll be the 11th worst team in the big leagues in 3 years?
Well, you got to admit, do you think they're going to be out of the top 10? Because you'd have to admit, after having, I think, 3 straight first overall picks, that would be progress.
Well, it certainly should be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously nobody knows. Um, but I'm gonna say no. Nope. I mean, it's great to have prospects, and I know that they have George Springer come up. He's doing great. I know that John Singleton guy wasn't a big prospect of theirs, but they gave him that money, and he came up hit a home run in his debut or whatever. So it's nice to see the youngsters playing well, but I'm just not confident in them right now. I mean, I do like prospects, and yeah, having the first pick in the last 3 years, it certainly should make you better. You know, you would like to say in the next few years, but until then, until I see it, I'm going to say no.
I'm going to have to disagree and say yes, because simply for the fact we've already saw a taste of what George Springer can do. He nearly won Player of the Month. He had 10 home runs in his last month alone. Jonathan Singleton is an absolute monster. You know, he was a pretty good prospect for them. They still haven't even called up Carlos Correa yet, who's going to be a great shortstop for them. You know, Jose Altuve has already stepped in nice as that leader, or that young guy that these younger players can look up to. You know, you got guys like Jared Cozart, who's done good work. Dallas Keuchel, who's done absolutely outstanding work so far. He's been their best pitcher. He's done good work. Then you got Fulton Evowitz, who's another big-time prospect for them. You still got Mark Appel sitting in the minors there that they drafted #1 overall last year. On top, you got Brady Aiken, who, you know, they've heard comps to Clayton Kershaw. So, I mean, you got some major talent in this system that's floating around that they just need to wait for it to develop. And I honestly think if they're not out of the top 15 in the next 3 years, I'd be really surprised with all this young talent that's getting close to being major league ready. So I got to disagree with you on that one, Mike.
Well, you just said some of the guys that are on the major league team right now, and John, they're 26 and 35. I mean, and you want to talk about the youngsters that they just drafted. In the next 3 years, are they going to be ready? I mean, I know, you know, the stars, you know, when you're picked first, I mean, typically you're going to be more ready than the general prospect that's picked. But in 3 years, you're going to be playing great baseball, great major league baseball? I don't know. You know, and I mean, some of these pitchers, God forbid, they're going to have Tommy John, and then they're out a year. I mean, you know how this baseball's been going lately.
Well, Springer, I think, was only down in the minor leagues for 3 years. I think Singleton was down there for 3 years. This is Correa's second year already, so he's getting closer to knocking on the door. I think he's in Double-A already. You know, Appel is going through their system pretty quickly because he's looking good. So, you know, I honestly do think in 3 years when all these guys are coming up, they're getting a chance. I mean, and the Astros know they're not playing for anything. That's why Singleton and Springer are up there right now, and Cozart, you know, getting a chance to play because they know they're not going to compete for anything. And, you know, at the pace they're going on right now, they're going to be on the pace not to lose 100 games this year for the first time in what, almost 3 years. So, I mean, they are making progress. And I think, you know, with all these prospects they got in their system, which is a quality group of prospects that they've accumulated, that if they're not out of the top 15 in the next 3 years, I'd be severely surprised because of the talent that they have sitting in that minor league system, especially guys like Correa and Appel. I mean, those two guys are very, very good prospects. And Springer, too. I mean, he was a 30-30 guy last year in the minors. He's legit, so who knows? I just can't see them being this bad for this long with the crop of talent they've got, and some of the talent that's already in the majors that is showing that, you know, they do have some potential to be major league starters and stars for years to come. So,
what team do you like more in the next 3 years? The Cubs or the Astros?
Ooh, that's a good one. I might go with the Astros for now, because I think their crop of pitching depth in the minors and some of the stars they already have in the major leagues, like Keuchel and Cozart, and then they still got guys like Fulton Evowitz, and then you got Appel and Aiken sitting down there now. You know, I think their pitching, their prospects are a bit better, but you look at, like, you know, the Cubs with guys like Chris Bryant sitting down there, and then guys like Sawyer sitting down there. I mean, they got Javier Baez, and they go along with Starlin Castro. But I think that they lack a little bit of depth when it comes to starting pitching prospects. Unlike the Astros, I think their starting pitching prospects are a bit better. So for position player wise, I got to go with the Cubs because Chris Bryant has said he's got some of the most pop and a third base prospect they've saw in the last 20 years. He's like that good. And Javier Baez, I watched a lot of Cubs spring training games this year. He was destroying the ball. He looks like he's going to be a great player. And you're going to have Castro to go along with him. Anthony Rizzo looks like he's coming into his own this year. And they've done a good job. You got Junior Lake, you got Sawyer, but I can't say the Cubs just because of the fact I like the Astros starting pitching prospects. And let's face it, I think I'd rather have better starting pitching prospects than position prospects because if the Giants didn't show you over the last two World Series that pitching can ride you to a World Series even when your offense isn't tip top. I mean, I don't know what will, So don't get me wrong, I think they got better positional player prospects, but I think as an overall, I got to go with the Astros over the Cubs in the next 3 years. I don't know about you. That's just me. But let's move on here, Mike. Continuing talking about guys. Who do you feel is now the best player in baseball? Last 2 years it's been unanimously thought of, I think, that it's been Mike Trout has been the best player in baseball. Well, now that Mike Trout went through some struggles this past year, and he's picked it up as of late, and he's had some back problems, do you still feel that Mike Trout's the best player in baseball, or do you think there is another person ready to take the throne over him?
I'm going to stick with Mike Trout. I mean, let's just put this in perspective, if you will. Mike Trout, according to some, is having a down year. I'm going to just run through his batting average, 295, OBP 379, his OPS is 936. I mean, the dude's got 11 home runs. The strikeouts are concerning. I mean, it's going to be a little ugly with his strikeouts this season, but again, this is his, third year in the big leagues as a regular player. He's having some back problems lately. I don't want to say that's an excuse for maybe his sluggish performance, which is still tremendous, but he has played in 55 games. They're not – I mean, his numbers aren't amazing right now, but they're still very, very good, and I don't think he's lost his position as the number one player in the game.
I got to agree with you. Harold Reynolds and Dan Plesac, I don't know why I listen to anything that Harold Reynolds ever says. But
he did win a Gold Glove with the Mariners in the 80s. Don't forget that.
I forgot. You got the exact reason.
You know Harold.
Yeah, I know the water isn't wet, but I'm right because I played with the Mariners in the 80s and I won a Gold Glove and a stolen base title. My bad. Forgot about that. That's his credentials. But Mike Trout, in my mind, even with the struggles, is still the best player in baseball. It's harder to find a guy that has the speed like he does, with the power he does, his ability to get on base like he does, his outfielding. Last year's outfielding, it took a hit because he was moving all over the outfield to compensate for Josh Hamilton's injuries and lack of play, or quality play. Then they had to move him to left. He was in left because of Peter Borges, and Borges got hurt, and he was in center, and he played some left. I mean, he played everywhere. This year, solely back in center field, his UZR is at 19.7 runs. His UZR 150, excuse me. His UZR, which is ultimate zone rating, is at 6.5. His defensive run save is at 4. So his defense has come back up, and like I said, as soon as I said this at the start of the year, as soon as he stays back in center, his defense will go back and improve again. So he's playing good defense again. Over his last 9 games, he's hitting 406 with a 462 on base and an OPS of 1.180 and a slugging percentage of 0.719. And he has 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and 5 walks and 10 strikeouts in that span. So the walk rate's coming back up. He is striking out a little bit, too much still, but he's getting more consistent contact on the ball. He's hitting the ball with authority again. I don't think that you could say anyone is better than this guy right now in baseball. I'm sorry. Miguel Cabrera, I think, is still the best hitter, undoubtedly. But as an overall player, a guy who plays defense, a guy who has speed, a guy who can hit for a little bit of power, get on base, hit for average, Mike Trout, I think, is still the complete package. And those guys were saying it's Troy Tulowitzki. Now, based on the numbers of this year, there is a hell of a good argument you could make that Troy Tulowitzki has been the best player in baseball this year. Because let's face it, Troy Tulowitzki is an amazing shortstop. I mean, it's hard to find. He's the best shortstop in the game. The way he plays defense is just second to none. He's got great power. He doesn't quite have the Mike Trout speed. So, you could definitely make a case for it. But I still have to stick with Mike Trout being the number one best player in baseball still to this day. His skill set, everything he does on the field, he's starting to come out of his slump over his last 9 games. Like you said, his down year numbers are numbers guys wish they post in a career year right now. I mean, that's how good Mike Trout is. So.
And yeah, just one thing with Tulowitzki. I mean, I know maybe you can make a case for this year. I need to look at Tulowitzki's numbers. I wouldn't be surprised. But over his history in the major leagues, one statistic that I think is relevant for him, games played. I mean, how many years has this guy suffered an injury that cost him to miss big amounts of time? I mean, if you're not on the field every day, I mean, that's one of the most underrated stats in any sport, games played. And Tulowitzki, when you look at his career, I mean, he's missed a lot of time in most years.
Exactly. How can you be the best player if you're not on the field playing the game you're best at?
You got that right.
I mean, it's simple as that. And Mike Trout, for the most part, up until this year, has been pretty much healthy, So let's move on, Mikey boy. Who's your weekly MVP?
Homer again, John. I apologize. Xander Bogaerts. Okay.
That's a good pick, though. That's a good pick.
I mean, I'm just gonna go back. I'll cheat a little bit. Since the Stephen Drew signing, so it's been like 2 weeks. We weren't here last week, so you guys can, screw you. Stephen Drew, since the Red Sox signed him, Xander Bogaerts has lit a fire under his ass. He's hit nearly 400. He's played better defense because if you remember prior to the Stephen Drew signing, his defense at short was not good. But when they did sign him and Drew was playing in the minors, Xander was playing a really good shortstop. And at third base, he did have one game where he made a bad throw. But other than that, Bogaerts defensively has been solid. Offensively, his power's gone up. He's getting a bunch of extra base hits. He's having great at-bats. He's driving in runs in key situations, getting on base all the time. I think they got to hit him third and flip-flop him and Pedroia because his power is there and Pedroia's isn't. So Xander Bogaerts is my weekly MVP.
That's a solid pick. I mean,
not homerish.
No, because, I was getting down on Xander Bogaerts, too, earlier this year. It seemed like every time that guy did anything, it was in garbage time. That's all it was. He hit a homer, well, the Red Sox were losing by 5. He got a run in, they were up by 6. He'd get a 3-hit game, they were losing the game already. It didn't really matter. Now this dude is performing. Like you said, his defense has been a lot better. His extra base power has been there. Do they got him playing third now that Drew's back? I haven't watched the Red Sox games.
Yeah, now he's at third base permanently.
Is he? I bet you're not too happy about that, but what are you going to do about it? But you know what? He knows next year. He knows that the Red Sox are in a bit of a bind, and Stephen Drew's not coming back next year. So he knows he's going to be back at short next year. You know it. So they're in a bit of a bind. You can blame that Will Middlebrooks getting hurt again, and having – how many third basemen have you had this year? You've had Will Middlebrooks, Brock Holt, Ryan Roberts –
Jonathan Herrera has had time at third base. Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah, so I mean, the Red Sox were kind of forced into this because Bogaerts wasn't hitting that well, he wasn't playing that good at defense, and then you had an absolute black hole at third, so they really had no choice but to shift Bogaerts over to third and get some kind of a shortstop because let's face it, Stephen Drew isn't going to play third for you, when he's clearly the better shortstop than Bogaerts was. So. They kind of had his hand forced, but I think next year Bogaerts will be there all year, 162, and the Red Sox are going to have to address something about third this upcoming offseason. I think the leash with Middlebrooks is got to be getting close to getting.
Oh, he's gone. Just real quick, I don't want to make this too much Red Sox, but they do have minor leaguers that are prepared to play third base, and Garen Cecchini and Devin Marrero. But Marrero is actually a better shortstop. He's like Iglesias. Yeah, they compared him to Iglesias. So then you can make the argument that if Cecchini doesn't work out at third base or he moves to first base, then you can stick Bogaerts at third and bring up Marrero. But let's not get too caught up with the kids here.
They called him up, though, didn't they?
Cecchini?
Yeah.
Yeah, for one day. And then they needed an infielder. He's in AAA again.
Oh, okay. Did he even play?
Yeah, he got an RBI double or something.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
little cup of coffee.
Yeah, quick cup of coffee. He just took he blew on the thing just to cool it off, and he was gone. He didn't get a chance to sip it.
Yeah, see you later, buddy.
But my weekly MVP is I'm not going to be a homer like Mikey is over here, but I am going to stay in my division. I got to go Jose Abreu. The guy misses 2.5 weeks, and he faces Clayton Kershaw in his first game. What does he do? He pops a homer off a really, really good left-hander. He ended up having 2 home runs that series against the White Sox or against the Dodgers. So you miss a couple of weeks of baseball, and you were leading the league in home runs. When you got out, what do? Hit 2 home runs in your first 5 games back. So Andy's hitting like 367 in his first 4 games back. So dude's legit, and I'm sad that he's in my division because he's going to destroy us for some years to come. That is
Yeah,
for
and at a very low salary. What's he getting paid? 11 million a year? I want to
yeah,
say it was 6 years, like 68 million. So it's like 11, 12 million bucks a year. That's a steal.
yeah, and
Players of Jose Abreu caliber would be commanding, $20 million.
oh for sure. I mean, he's been him and Tanaka are going to be. I think this is going to be one of the most controversial Rookie of the Year classes ever because the guys that we thought, the Castellanos, the Xander Bogarts, we thought those guys, were going to be the dudes that were going to be American League Rookie of the Winter Year candidates. And there's a lot of controversy about guys like Tanaka and guys like Abreu. Are they truly rookies
Yeah.
because they played in other countries before and their age already? Are they truly rookies? But you look at guys like Tanaka and Abreu, they're clear cut the best two rookies right now in the American League, and it's going to look like it's going to be hard to dethrone either one of those two guys of being one, 1A for the candidates for that award right now. So I think this year is going to have the most controversy ever for Rookie of the Year voting simply for the fact that both of those guys have already professionally played ball and they're 26, 27 years old already. So, but I got to go with the Brady for my weekly MVP. Who's your LVP?
I would like to say one player, but I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Rays as a team. Currently on a 10-game losing streak. They're 14 games under 500. I mean, goodness. Are they going to trade David?
Hey, remember when they were supposed to win the East this year?
Oh, goodness. Every year they're the favorite team to pick, and I understand. And, let's be fair. I mean, they did get some significant injuries. Matt Moore went down. They lost Cobb for a substantial part of time. David Price hasn't been that great this year. The offense has been iffy. Longoria's not had a great year.
You see how many homers he's got hit off him this year? It's sickening, the amount of home runs he's given up.
How many?
I think he's got like 12 or 11 home runs already hit off of him this year. It's nuts. I'm going to look it up to be exact.
But yeah, the Tampa Bay Rays as a whole have been hugely disappointing, and as far as I'm concerned, they're out of it. Season's over for them. I mean, 14 under at this stage. I'm sorry, they're done.
He's started the most games in the majors. He's had 2 complete games, which is leading the majors. He's got 91 and 2/3 innings pitched, which is leading it. But he's also leading in hits allowed. He's also leading in home runs allowed, which is 13. And but he is leading in strikeout to walk ratio. His strikeout to walk ratio right now is at 11.22. So he's averaging 9.9 strikeouts per 9, but only 0.9 walks. So how confusing is his stat line right now? He's got almost 10 strikeouts per 9, and he's not even walking a hitter per 9, and he's averaging 11 strikeouts for every walk. Yet, his ERA is 4.03, and he's given up the most home runs in the majors. That is the most confusing stat line I have ever saw in my life. Just saying. So, but you and I both weren't drinking the Rays Kool-Aid earlier this year. So you and I can honestly say, told you so at this point. Now, you got to be a little bit fair to the Rays. You touched on it absolutely. They have had injuries for sure, and they have lost some big pieces, and there has been quite a few underperformances. But I am going to get a chance to say I told you so because I wasn't drinking the Rays Kool-Aid, that's for sure. I was drinking the Yankees Kool-Aid. So right now that stuff's gone sour, and they're not playing good at all. So, yeah. We needed to be drinking the Blue Jays Kool-Aid like I was last year because we'd be dead on right now.
A year early on the Blue Jay Kool-Aid.
I was a year early. I had it. I should have just made it and stuck it in the fridge to let it simmer for a year and then just drank it this year. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, my weekly LVP, and I swear to God, you must be reading my goddamn mind. My weekly MVP is also a team, and it's the Tigers because they have been complete and utter dog shit over the last 17 games. Like I said, they can't play at any facet of the game. Torrey Hunter's really showing his age in the outfield. He's looked awful. Torrey Hunter's hitting under 100 in his last 8 games. Austin Jackson's hitting like 179 since the start of May. He's been terrible, and he's playing an awful left center field. I'd like to see JD Martinez get a little bit more starting time over Torrey Hunter, but I know what they're paying Torrey Hunter. But you got to give JD Martinez a couple more looks if Hunter's hitting .56 in his last 4 games. And then left field's been pretty okay, and then shortstop's been an issue. Kinsler's gone cold. Cabrera and Martinez have been the only ones doing anything, and then Castellanos, he's been consistent, and then the rotation's been a joke, and Joe Nathan's posting his worst career numbers ever as a closer, his worst career numbers since he was a starter. They have been shit. They have been pure dog shit. So, undoubtedly, my least valuable player, my LVT, The Detroit Tigers. They've been awful. So, you got anything to add to this, Mike?
Be awful for 3 more days.
No.
Win again.
We need the Lester that come out. You know what kills me about John Lester? How the fuck can this guy come out and strike out 15, and then his next start he goes like 6 and gives up like 4 earned runs, and then he'll strike out 12 the next start after that? Dude, blows my mind how inconsistent that guy can be. I'm just saying. Hopefully, I think Max Scherzer faces him this week. I'm not sure.
It does Saturday. This should be a good game. Scherzer versus Lester.
But one thing concerning for you is that the Tigers, up until this little skid, is they were destroying left-handed pitching. So hopefully their bats perk up some and destroys Lester. Did we face Lester last time we played you guys?
Yeah, they won 1-0.
Yeah, that was a good game. I remember that game. That was a really, really good game. So hopefully they win it like 10-0 this time because, goddamn, they need a win. Lost 5 straight. I don't know how you dealt with 10 straight losses. Like, I would have been banging my head through the wall, but at 5, I'm just going fucking nuts. It's just awful to watch these guys on a nightly basis, man, right now. They're playing like shit. So, if you got nothing else to add, I'm going to cut it off right there. We'll be back next week again on Friday. Hopefully more stuff to talk about this week. Was kind of a hard show to get put together. Wasn't too much going on. So, for Mike Hewitt, I'm John Check. Have a good one, guys.
See ya.